Hey, Lioness, have you ever been stuck in a season where the weight of life was so heavy that you felt like you couldn't take another step? Maybe your plans failed, the unexpected happened, or you're staring at consequences you didn't see coming. But what if I told you there's more to the story? That there's the power of and. In Genesis, it shows us God who is good, very good, and who doesn't leave us stranded in the middle of chaos. Look at Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, and sold into slavery, and God was with him. Let's not miss that. Every hardship was followed by an and, A-N-D. Joseph was in the pit, and God rose him to leadership in Potiphar's house. He was thrown into prison, and God gave him favor to interpret dreams. He was forgotten, and God positioned him to save a nation. You see, the and changes everything. It's God's way of reminding us that his story isn't over, even when ours feel like it is. You've ever been in situations where periods felt like the end? For example, the doctor's report, a period, that unexpected job loss, period, the broken relationship, another period. But God doesn't write periods, He writes ends. The enemy would love for you to believe that your story stops here. But God says, I'm still writing. Watch what happens when you trust me with the next chapter. Think about Jesus on the cross. The crowd thought it was over. He's dead, period. But 3 days later, God added the ultimate end, and he rose with all power in his hands. That's the kind of God we serve. He turns periods into possibilities. So let me ask you something, Linus. What's your period right now? Where have you stopped believing God could step in with an and? Maybe it's your finances, your health, or even your faith. Whatever it is, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what does God want to add to this story? Sometimes we can't see the end because we're so focused on the pain. But let me remind you, pain doesn't cancel purpose. Romans 8:28 tells us, and we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. Not some things, not just the easy things, but all things. That means even the parts of your story that feel broken can still lead to something beautiful. So here's the challenge for you today. Start adding and to your circumstances. I lost my job and God has a plan to open new doors. My relationship ended and God is healing me for something greater. I feel stuck and God is working behind the scenes. Don't allow a temporary setback convince you that God is finished. He's not done with you. The promise he gave you is still alive. And here's the thing about promises. They require trust. Trust that God knows what he's doing, even when you don't. Trust that his timing is perfect, even when yours feels delayed. And as we wrap this up, I want you to do something bold. Write down your period moment. Then beside it, add an and. Let it remind you that God isn't finished. His character doesn't change because your circumstances do. He's the same God who was with Joseph, who raised Jesus, and who's walking with you right now. So the next time life tells you it's over, remember it's not a period, it's an and. And as we approach the end of this year and step into 2025, remember that your story isn't over. Whatever challenges you face this year, trust that there's an and waiting for you in the next chapter. God is still working. He's still faithful and he's still writing your story, sis. And it's always possible for you, one and at a time. Thank you for hanging out with me. Until next time, woman of valor.